All right, today I think we're gonna go ahead and try to tackle our roof wrap. I've kind of had it laying out. It had been in the roll for a while, so I figured I'd lay it out a little bit so it can kind of relax and flatten itself out, make it a little easier to work with. I've removed all of the trim that goes along the roof rails here, and we'll have to make sure we thoroughly clean all of this out, because any of this debris, if it gets disturbed and sticks to the bottom of the vinyl, it's gonna leave a texture, and we absolutely do not want that. So the top of the car has gotten pretty dusty, and actually the vinyl has gotten dusty. I had not factored that in, so that's gonna make this a pain. I'm probably gonna have to clean this off a little bit before I take it off of the roof, just so that it's clean and I'm not knocking dirt off of this onto the roof. So I'm gonna start out by wiping down the vinyl. It still has its clear protective layer, so I'm not worried about scratching it by wiping it off or anything. So that's where I'm gonna start. We'll open this up and clean it off, and we'll move it out of the way, and then we'll clean off the roof and go from there. Roof is clean, or mostly clean. I'm actually gonna go an extra step here. When we did the toolbox, I learned that any sort of surface texture is going to show. So, as an extra precaution, I actually have some detailing clay bar. So I'm gonna tear some of this off, and I'm gonna wipe the entire roof down with this clay bar. And what that's gonna do is pull out any micro debris that might be embedded into the clear coat of the paint. This should make sure that we have an extra smooth surface, or as smooth as it can be. There are plenty of scratches and stuff on here that may show through, and the only way to handle that would be to sand everything down and make it super smooth. But most of these don't seem deep enough to have me terribly concerned. So we're gonna hit it with this clay bar, make sure we have as much surface debris off as we can get, and go from there. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can see that this thing was able to pick up quite a bit of dirt that just a towel didn't. So there are a couple of scratches I've found that are pretty deep and may show through, and then a couple of tiny, I assume rust spots or something. I have a couple dents in the front. There's not much I can do about those. I thought about trying to knock them from this side, but the problem is it's two layers. So the dent isn't actually in this part. It's only in this upper skin, and there's no way to get in there to do it. I could drill a hole in this to access that, but it's more work than I care to be bothered with. So the plan now is to, I guess, lie it up there, and we'll do it in sections. It's probably going to be easiest if I were to do sections, stick this much, and then flip it over and stick this much. But I think for the best result, I'm actually gonna be better doing the halves like this. I think it's gonna be more work, but it's gonna allow opportunity, I think, for a better, smoother finish. So that's the route we're gonna go. I'm gonna get this thing, we're gonna throw it up here, and get it ready to go. All right, guys, I am sweating, I am stressed. That was not going to plan. So you can see, we are relatively smooth here. I was really worried. I will never try to do something like this on my own again. That was the most stressful and terrifying thing. At one point, I had pretty much decided I was gonna rip this all up, throw it in the trash, and have to buy a whole nother sheet, which is, you know, $100 to $200. You can see, like, this edge is super, super wrinkly. Trying to do it myself, this stuff was just sticking to itself. If I can focus, there we go. But it does seem to come apart pretty easily. So now that I know I have enough overhang on all of my edges and we're relatively smooth for what it's worth, I'm going to peel this clear liner off. This clear liner, I think, is just designed to protect it while it's being put in boxes and things of that nature. Supposedly, having this plastic on eliminates the breathability of the material. So if you left this clear plastic on, remember when we did the toolbox, we were able to rub it and the bubbles would just breathe through the material? Well, with this clear protectant, it does not allow that. So now that it's on there and spread out basically where I'm happy with, and I know I can make this sheet work, I'll be ripping off this clear cover and we'll start really cleaning up some of these edges. We still have several little bubbles, and I don't think they're actually bubbles. I think they're little pieces of dirt and dust that got underneath there. Kind of a bummer. I wouldn't have expected stuff like that to show up quite so much, but I think once I get this thing wiped off and, you know, get some of these streaks and stuff out, there's definitely going to be some spots you could see here. If it'll focus, yeah. You know, this unfortunately, there was quite a big bubble and it ended up leaving these little wrinkles. I don't see any way to get these out, but I mean, if I have 3 or 4 of those across this span of, you know, 6-7 feet, I think we're gonna be all right. It's not a huge deal. Plus, we'll also have our rails sitting up here that'll make some of that stuff hopefully a little less obvious. But one thing I would like to try, so I've got this cut and it's tucked, so all these edges will be covered by the rails. I'm wondering, since I have such long strips of vinyl left, I may try to use those on these body trim panels. So I'm gonna off camera get these cleaned up real quick and wiped down and ready. And then instead of just ripping this off and throwing it away, I'm hoping I can rip that off and make it work down there. So let's see how that works. So we have the car done, and we're gonna look at that here in a second. I have to say, doing vinyl yourself, if you can manage to give it a shot and not give up, it's pretty great. Let's say I'm in this $200 between the roll and the squeegee and all of that junk. We have our entire roof painted. Our mirrors had some really terrible clear coat damage that I'll show right here. And then there's also a couple miscellaneous things throughout that we decided to go ahead and throw some of this on. So without further ado, let's check this thing out. This thing looks, I think, exactly the way I was wanting it to look. We went ahead and wrapped these mirrors with the gloss black. I don't know that I like the black mirrors. I think that might be a little too much, but I think that this is better than all of the clear coat peeling that was on there before. And I'm assuming those would be easy enough to take apart and get repainted down the road if I needed to, if I wanted to go back to the red. So that's pretty cool. The roof, I am really glad I decided to do this. Again, not perfect, as this is my first time really doing vinyl wrap. There are a few spots, like these here. Those are actually dents. They're not, you know, issues with the vinyl. It's just dents in the roof that I didn't end up getting. There are some other spots when I was cutting I could have taken some more time, but it is not worth, you know, this little section is not worth redoing the whole roof and buying more vinyl. This looks ugly, but there's actually, the sunroof goes here, and there's a seal that goes around this that covers all of that. And there are totally places in these areas are where bubbles and wrinkles were there, and I just couldn't get them to come out. Again, not worth tearing this whole thing out to correct that. But as a whole, it's pretty good. Not a showpiece, but it gives me confidence down the road to do this again, and maybe even spend a little bit more on some higher quality vinyl. I think had I spent a little more time doing some of the cleaning work, and especially had I gotten a second set of hands, this would have gone a whole lot easier. But it's definitely a 5-footer. You know, back here, this thing looks sweet. You get a little closer, you know, you're gonna see the imperfections. Guys, I paid $1,000 for this car, so we are leaps and bounds better than we were before. I also went ahead and did these trim sections down here. I think it's really cool. It's a throwback. Normally these are paint matched red. I'll throw another picture up here. But I think I like this gloss look. It's sort of, in my opinion, throwing it back to the 850s, where these were actually ABS plastic or, you know, light trim colored. So the only thing I'm kind of on the fence about, I was originally going to go ahead and do the whole bumper, front and rear as well, especially since we have more peel and clear coat here. Seeing what I've seen now, if I go that route, I'll actually have to sand all of this down. I did do a trim panel back here as well that was very torn up with the clear coat, and you can see, and I don't know that the camera is going to show this, but this is all the texture from the peel and clear coat. That I would have had to have sanded that down, which I will probably do in the future, this being a smaller piece. But again, we're not going for show car we're going for something that's just going to look cool heading down the road. We did do both sides. Man, I love the way that this turned out. And it was a much needed break from the interior work. You can see we still have a lot to do here in the interior. This seat isn't bolted down, it's just in there, so I had somewhere to sit. I need to get the radio all sorted and finally done up, and then I can start finishing the rest of the seats. The door panels are gonna be probably a video on by themselves, so we'll wait and see those and check out the issues once we get to that. But slowly but surely, this thing is starting to look like a car again. Interior work is not one of my favorite things to do. However, I actually really enjoyed doing this. I think it made a huge difference. I mean, gosh, the black roof, I'm so happy with that. So, one other thing that I would like to do at some point, but I do not have the vinyl to do it. Once we get these windows tinted, that's going to make these a nice black panel, but I want to go the extra mile and actually do all of these edges around the windows, all gloss black as well. So then this whole section here, stops right here. All of this is just going to be one nice gloss black panel. I think that that's going to make this car look shorter, so a little more sporty, but I also think that it's going to make it look a little more modern, so it doesn't look like it's actually a 24-year-old car. But again, the right way to do this, I think, is to do it in full sheets, but that means that this whole window section is going to be waste, which is really unfortunate. I could do a couple of little strips and then just live with the fact that there are some seams, but if I can avoid that, I'd rather just do it the right way. And now that I have a better understanding of how vinyl works, I'm confident that I can figure it out. So I may try to plan some other projects around here so that all of that cutout trim piece isn't wasted. I can use it on something else. I tried to find some things on the exterior that I wanted to try that with. I think this is all it needs. I'll probably end up doing the door handles. I don't really want to, but as you can see, their clear coat is failed as well, and they don't look great. So again, something I could take off relatively easily and send to get painted if I wanted. But for now, this is good. This is probably one of the biggest transformations that I've gotten to see on this car yet. So there it is. Don't be afraid to give this stuff a shot. I think it was less than $200 for this sheet of vinyl, and I think it was worth every penny. It did get a little frustrating at times, and I wanted to give up. At one point, I almost did. But I'm glad I didn't. I was so worried about perfection that, especially these two little bubble areas here. They're pretty noticeable, but it's still better than it was. And this was a nice change in pace, like I said. I hadn't had a whole lot of ambition to come out here and work on this car, but getting away from the interior and stepping back from that has made a whole lot of difference. I'm really excited to move on to what's next, but unfortunately, I think what's next is going to have to be the interior. I can't keep putting it off forever, or the car will never get done. So I'm going to leave it at that. Again, so happy with the way this came out. I don't know what else to say. I'm excited. I'm amped back up on this car. So until next time, guys, I'll see you later.